I'm John Gever with MedPage Today in Atlanta for the American College of Rheumatology annual meeting. One of the highlights here has been the report of Phase 3 data on tasocitinib for rheumatoid arthritis. It's what might be called an oral biologic. It's an oral small molecule drug, but it has an action against cytokines similar to what we expect from biologic agents. The data were presented here by Dr. Roy Fleischmann of the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas. Dr. Fleischmann has led many clinical trials of RA drugs over the years. I talked with him about tasocitinib as well as other issues related to rheumatoid arthritis treatment.
So it was a positive trial in terms of efficacy with no new safety signals. If the other Phase 3 studies are successful, or equally as successful, and the drug is approved, it would be a welcome armamentarium to the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis.
And the fact that it's an oral drug, how important is that to patients? Is there an issue with compliance with injectables, or is it really just a matter of convenience? And are there patients who don't really mind the injectables?
Yes. So there are patients who don't mind the injectables, and there are patients who do mind the injectables, either for convenience. If they're traveling and they have to keep it cold, and they can't keep it cold, that could become difficult. There are patients who have injection site reactions with the drugs, either a rash or burning, which they don't like. So there are patients who would prefer to have an oral drug. The question of compliance with an oral drug versus an injectable it's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that, but I have no control over whether a patient injects the drug to themselves or takes the pills themselves. If I give it intravenously, I know they've gotten it or have not gotten it. There are many patients that I have who are taking a biologic by injection, doing very, very well, who ask me when is an oral biologic going to be available. So that's why I said yes, because each one of those is probably true.
In this trial, as we've seen with just about every other advanced drug for RA, you can't call this a biologic drug because it's not, but along with the biologics, you still see 30% of patients who don't even get an ACR20. What does that say about the heterogeneity of RA, and do you find that there are patients who don't respond to any of these? Are you able to get an ACR20 with multiple trials of drugs?
So that's also, it's a very difficult question, because there are patients that I have who've not achieved an ACR20 who have an excellent response to a drug. And those are the patients who you see in a long-term trial, still on the drug, not with an ACR20. Why is that? Because they're missing a component. The ACR20 is artificial. It's a very good measure to determine in groups whether a patient responds or not, but not by the individual. So that's one point. The other question you asked is there a heterogeneity? And there obviously is, because I could put one patient on one biologic, and they can have a great response and really bad side effects. Switch the biologic, have no effect and bad side effects. Switch the biologic, have a great effect and no side effects. So everybody's body is different. Whether that's a difference in the disease, or is RA really 20 diseases or 50 diseases, or is that a difference in how we assimilate and use a drug? Both of those are probably true.
And what's your attitude toward the early aggressive treatment, hitting patients with biologics as soon as they walk in the clinic with early arthritis?
I don't have an attitude. That's what you do. So clearly, the mantra that I've used probably for the last 10 years is never too early, but never too late. So an early patient, it's never too early to treat a patient aggressively. And by aggressive, it means the least amount of medication to get the perfect result. So I start everybody off of methotrexate, because about a third of those patients will do very well with methotrexate. It's oral, it's cheap, once a week, well-known side effect profile. I can follow it. I feel very comfortable with methotrexate. But if in 8-12 weeks the patient doesn't have the type of response that I would like to have, the patient would like to have, then we're changing. And that's what should be the rule. The rule is you pick your drug, start your drug, do a measure of disease activity, and the measure isn't, I think I'm doing okay, but something that's really hard and solid you can go by. And if they don't hit that hard and solid, whatever that is, whether that's a DAS remission or a DAS low disease activity or a rapid 3 or whatever it is, you move on. And you still check it every 2 to 3 months, and if they have it, you change. The earlier you do it, the less likely it is that a patient will develop permanent damage. Once you destroy a joint, it's destroyed. It doesn't come back. But if I see a patient who's 10 years of disease, still active, I use the same principles. Aggressive therapy, and I'm trying to stop that disease. Whatever damage they have, but I don't want any further. And what I've seen over the years, and I think it's been well reported, is that the response, the depth of response, early or late, will be the same. What's going to be left is the residual damage. So early treatment is important, but more importantly, aggressive treatment, treating to remission. True remission is if you can achieve it, is very important.
In Atlanta, I'm John Gever, MedPage Today.